the pleasure, to introduce Bonnie Wolff-Boenisch, who is at Science Europe, but so I made my homework. I checked the biography, and so an interesting point about Bonnie is that she started researching in cosmos chemistry. Yeah, and geochemistry at the Max Planck Institute. Then she worked in CNRS in France, and she worked on climate, actually. So it's not like neuroscience, but more climate who bring her in science. And she moved to science diplomacy, coordinating multinational research projects. And now she's heading the research effort at Science Europe, and she's going to speak about the Science Europe Plan S and beyond. Yes, thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
If you press down, it should work.
Okay,
and this is pointer.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much to the organizer to invite me to their first Neuro OpenScience conference. So I'm very curious what your research committee has to say, and also on the ongoing discussion. Plan S has been mentioned. It is in my presentation, but it's not only the focus. So I will try to present, to introduce what is Science Europe and what Science Europe has done in the past, present, and will do in the future. Okay. Do I have to connect it? It's on? Because
it should be on. If you go down, this down button. You see?
Okay, down, okay. Okay.
And the lady at the top.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, before I start my presentation, I would like to make a disclaimer, and it has been already insinuated in the first presentation that, that there is no definition of open science. And the concept will very much depend also where you come from, not only if you're an active scientist, but also if you're a policymaker or what is your agenda. It will depend on your discipline and also on your needs and the level of advancement in your field. If you're obliged to share data, if you have to work now in big teams, so it's how to incentivize big teams, how you co-create. And it depends, of course, also if you had already a career in science, or if you're still in the making and have to navigate now through the transition phases. And I said your agenda because, I'm sorry, I already broke it. Okay. And it depends, your agenda, what I mean is what you actually want to achieve with open science. If you want to really have a vision, like I felt it was a bit in the first presentation, that as a scientist, or where you look already 20 years ahead and you anticipate science has to be like this, or for example, if you come from a traditional system where you fund grants and you will not disrupt everything, and you have to maintain the system and adjust the system with changing trends. So this is very important to keep in mind. So that's why I call it also either a practice or a vision. Because you can do open science as a practice, but you can also look ahead and see it as a vision. So what is important also, I have to explain what is Science Europe, because it's not a traditional organization. Science Europe is an umbrella organization. We represent 36 member organizations from 27 countries. They are combined, or they consist of research funding organizations and also research performing organization. Research performing organization means research institutes who do active science. Combined, the budget is approximately 18 billion per year. So it's not an error, it's not million, it's billion. It's about 18 billion a year. Our members altogether spend in funding research, directly or indirectly. Reaching out, try to model a bit the number, but we can roughly anticipate they have an impact directly or indirectly about 1.8 million European scientists. And what is also very important to understand, it's a policy organization. So though a majority are funding agencies, there is no funding involved, and it has no operational role, means also do not coordinate research projects. That gives you shortly just an indication of our members. In red are the performing organizations. It's just so you have it in your slides. Okay, and we do a wide range of topics and activities. So we have two roles. One is helping to collaborate our members together, and also active advocacy. So on the collaborative part, as you can see, from cross-border collaboration to gender diversity, research careers, research infrastructure, and in red the three topics I will present in my presentation, they are all ingredients for keeping the research system effective. And the other part, which is also important, is what we call active advocacy. That means we are the collective voice for our member organizations' interest, and try to do evidence-based research policies. But we kind of do lobbying. So at the moment, what is very important also for you, it has impact on your research in Europe, is negotiation with the European Commission and the Parliament on the framework programs, Horizon 2020 and Framework Program 9, so Horizon Europe. But we do also a lot now and more on looking, monitoring and lobbying for EU regulation and legislation who have an impact on research. And you can see a lot of, some of them has been mentioned, but you see a lot of them are also in the life sciences field. So the GDPR was a very important topic. The clinical trial directive is coming up, and recently we had also genome editing. And everything is, science advice is provided in different stages via different mechanisms in these policies, so that the science, the voice of science is heard within these policies. And it's a part of my responsibility too. Okay, so the current work, what we do, and I mention it here, is because it has an impact also on European scientists, is discussion about so-called research data management plans. And the funding agencies or your research institutions will increasingly ask you to develop these plans. The idea is to support scientists in considering all relevant aspects of data management from the very beginning of your research project. What is meant is that really thinking already about the optimal handling, organizing, documenting and storing your data. And the background for it, or why it's tackled within Science Europe, is because then you can tackle it on the European level or at our members level, is that it might be very confusing and even problematic if you not only have to deal with such a research data management plan, but if your grant comes from different sources and there are different requirements, and especially also if you're highly mobile and you not even change institution, but even countries or even disciplines. So in order not to have 10,000 different research data management plans, the idea is to have a harmonizing it. And this has direct impact of you. So if you are not yet in your institution requires that from you, though you are quite data-driven community already, but this is the future. So this will be sooner or later come up, and with the new framework program at the Horizon Europe, it will come. And we will, if you're interested, I put it here, is we will launch also this practical guide to the international alignment of research data management. So I just put it here in the slides for your portfolio in case you are interested. So we will launch this this brochure, and if you're interested, you can have a look at it. But it's also for, of course, for institutions to get informed. So now coming to Plan S. And before I come a bit to the plan, I have no time, but if not, I would need a whole day to explain open access and Plan S. And I know that after our session, we will have an interesting session on the topic, more in depth. But Plan S, I mean, it's a long history. Basically, already in 2002, there were first discussion on open and access initiatives, which is called like a major defining event where already international organization came together. And perhaps on the milestone of the open access movement, one could say it's 2003, the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to Knowledge in the Sciences and Humanities, which took place at the Max Planck Society. And since then, you have regularly meetings on that matter. But Science Europe, even in its foundation in 2011, already in our roadmap, we had clear objectives to move away from a subscription-based pay-to-read system and to very different business models for research publication. The goal is mentioned here, pay-to-publish, but also in the Plan S, it's claimed, or there are different models, also different business plan where we can go. And since then, 2013, 15, I just listed some key initiatives. I come in a second to the Open Access 2020 Global Initiative, but you will have also a presentation later. My point here is, and this is just for compiling the slides, but my point is here that since 2002 a lot of ink has been flown and nothing has been moved. And the reality was that with increasing exchange and there was or even a discussion with the publishers, and I remember since 6 years already that Science Europe, its members, negotiated with different type of publishers, but since then nothing having really moved. That the more information you got and the more you modeled, you can see that the question of open access journal raised basically the question about the value publishers add for their money. The articles can be very expensive. They can go up to 20,000 euro, which is crazily expensive. And also with more discussion and open science method and more open access publishers, of course the trend was that at a certain moment that open access platforms increased, and it was basically timely to do a bold move, and that led to the Plan S. Also, what would be, or what is important to understand is that not only that the price tag for publication becomes so high that at a certain moment institutions and funders had really struggled to pay these publications, it's also that if you're bound in large contracts, your flexibility is very reduced. So you can't even invest in new ideas, in new publication platforms, because you'd have to pay this amount. So it hampers also innovation, basically. That leads us then to shortly to the Plan S and the coalition. So the coalition aims to full and immediate open access to publications, especially both from publicly-funded research, and this is now the contract you have with society. Society, via tax money, pays research, so then scientists should also be able to publish their results, so also society gets access to those results. And yeah, and as I said, to move towards new models. And to have a more transparent, efficient, and fair system. That means transparent means that you understand how the pricing are done, and that the young scholar have the opportunity to advance their careers in these new outlets, open science. And Science Europe, or Open Coalition, is realized that it can't be done alone. So, of course, there are a lot of negotiation at the moment with other research funding institutions, learned societies, to make that happen. You can't do that. You need a critical mass. You need really a global initiative to switch completely the model. Who are Coalition S? So this is gives you an idea of our members. It's not all Science Europe members. Currently it's only 12 to 13 Science Europe members. But you see that we have now the Wellcome Trust, the Bill Gates Foundation, the Reichsbank and Jubiläumsfonds, who endorse it, who are part of the coalition. And I just got yesterday the information that now the African Academy of Sciences will join. So I think there will be a certain moment there will be a critical mass. It's highly it's supported by the European Research Council and the European Commission. And in red here I put coordinated by Science Europe, because since Science Europe is an umbrella organization, I stand here and explain to you Plan S and explain to you what is Science Europe doing, but I can't talk in the name now of these different national funding agencies, because at the end of the day, they will harmonize, and that's the idea, to align these policies, but at the national level, they will kind of fine-tune. So for the French system, there might be different monitoring or whatever compliance system in place. So that's a bit where as an umbrella organization, you coordinate, you support your members, but you can't speak for each members alone. So as I said, there's strong political support. Our Twitter account exploded. We got about 80,000 tweets about this topic. The reactions from the research committee varies from 100 fully support to objection. And as I said, it depends on the research committee, your context, your knowledge, your fears, your scares, and I think that's in a transition phase. If things really fundamentally changing, it's normal also, this wide diversity of reaction. What is, well, for the slides later published, I just put also the 10 principles of the Plan S here, but I have no time to go into it. Perhaps, yeah, so the main goal is by 2020 to have, to switch or to have from research funded public grants provided by National European Research Council and funding bodies to be compliant and published in open access journals. But perhaps more important is for those who want to contribute and have something to say, there is a consultation on the implementation guidance, and the consultation is still open till the 8th of February. Especially, so you can contribute either from your perspective of your research community, or those who have experiences with licenses and more technical stuff, or depositories and so on, can contribute and make comments. As you see, we have also a lot of feedback on that. We have currently 650 responses. I think we will have probably 1,000 responses from the research communities and all constitutions involved. So this is the link. And based on the feedback, the guidance will be refined. It's striving for publishing in summer. I don't know if this date, this timeline can be held, but it definitely will be published this year, because the commitment is to start off as of 1st of January 2020. And so but again, and it has been also resonated in the first presentation, that nevertheless, cultural changes will be needed for more increase to open research and the uptake. And the cultural change is everywhere, and cultural change is also in the research system in academia. And but of course, in fair play, there's lack of incentives to also switch, because most of you probably will or think, well, if I do it, will I lose out? Or we heard about opportunities, but of course, if you cannot publish anymore in Nature, there is a challenge there, because the system still works by journal impact factors mostly. Then, of course, the question arises: if it's more work, I have now to understand everything. The licenses is complicated, but there's a lot of misconceptions also. That open research doesn't mean that everything is quality. So funders have also, or you have to make sure also that if you publish open, that the quality still is there. Also, open doesn't mean that you get naked now. Everything make it open. There's degrees of openness also, and especially if you work with data protection, and you work with patient, that you can't make everything open. And the same basically it goes for social and humanities. If they work with humans, you can't make everything open. So there are a lot of confusions there. But of course, the question is what to do and how to do. You don't know, and there is conservatism in the system, but most of it, I think, also there's a lack of knowledge, because it's complicated and it's new. And so I think a lot of trainings will be crucial, and that's why I like also this setting and this first conference, because this helps to get a better sense and grasp of what it means, open science, and what's behind and what it isn't, or what you want, how you want to do it. And perhaps on the last, I'm coming now to my last slide, on the lack on incentives, what is clear also in the context of the discussion of Plan S is that the system has to be changed how you evaluate scientists, and it can't be only the journal impact factor and a citation. So this year, in 2 weeks, we will establish a task, Science Europe will establish a task force where we will start with a systematic review of what is called the research assessment practices by our member organization. That means basically look how peer review has been done, how good the peer review system works, or if there are other new forms like open peer review that our members, especially funding agencies, can adapt. The idea behind this is not only look at the peer review system, but also start to discuss and think about how you reward excellent sciences beyond the journal impact factor, and also take things like the DORA and the Leiden Manifesto into account, where these coalition also promoted already some years ago now that you have to go beyond the journal impact factor and the matrices and assess research differently. And yes, and this the result of the task forces will serve to formulate new policies for Science Europe. But this is, I guess, a bit longer. That will be long-term plan. It will not change the system overnight. So, so you are part of it, of these debates. And with these words, I would come to the end of my presentation.